The Cinnamon desktop is developed and maintained by the Linux Mint team. It's also their default desktop environment, so when you install Linux Mint, that's the desktop environment you would get by default. So you might ask yourself, why would I want to install Cinnamon 4 on just plain Ubuntu? Well, Linux Mint is not a rolling release and tends to base itself on long-term support releases of Ubuntu. So some of the packages, kernel, and some other parts of the system are going to be older than something like the current short-term support release of Ubuntu. In this case, the current Ubuntu short-term release is 19.04 Disco Dingo, which has a newer base and set of packages than Linux Mint. In my own personal experience, I've had better luck with Ubuntu proper or Ubuntu vanilla on my particular hardware. In my case, I have a Dell XPS 15 9570 with the NVIDIA Optimus hybrid graphics card. The Ubuntu drivers work better than the Mint drivers, and in fact the 1904 drivers work better than the 1810 or the 1804 long-term support drivers. Therefore, you might want to run Cinnamon on a newer version of Ubuntu than what Mint is providing. So it's actually not terribly difficult to do this. It's a little time consuming, and this video will be a little longer than my normal videos. And you can take a default install, so a clean install of Ubuntu proper. So that's what I'm going to show you here, is how to install a clean, minimal Ubuntu 19.04 Disco Dingo environment, how to add the PPA, how to install Cinnamon, and there's a couple little fixes after we do that, and then just some basic setup. So let's jump right in then. So to get a clean install, you want to use the network installer, which you can get from the alternative downloads, and I will link this. So we want the network installer for 19.04, and we're going to use AMD 64. And then from this page, we want the mini.iso file, which you see is very mini, only 68 megs compared to the default 1+ gig ISO that you would normally download. All right, so I've already downloaded this. And once you've done that, your next step is to install the minimal system. And either you're going to do this in a virtual machine, like I'm going to do for this video, or if you're installing it on bare metal directly to your hardware, you'd want to burn it to a USB drive with something like Balena Etcher. It's the one I normally use and never have any problems with. Other applications that burn to USB, there are plenty of choices, but for whatever reason, this one always works well for me, so that's what I use. But in this case, again, I'm going to go for virtual machine. Most distributions are going to give you VirtualBox by default as an option. You can also use KVM and Virtual Machine Manager and things like that. For simplicity, I'm just going to use VirtualBox. So let's go ahead and create a new machine here. I'm going to call this Ubuntu Cinnamon. And depending on your system, you're going to want to provide whatever resources make sense. So in my case, I have lots of memory, so I'm going to go ahead and give it 4 gigs. I have lots of space, so I'm going to go ahead and give it 30 gigs of space for hard drive. And let me go ahead and set this up. Give it a few more processor cores. I will turn on 3D acceleration, and VirtualBox 6, this SVGA option is selected by default, and I find that it doesn't really work very well in most cases, so I will switch it to the VBox VGA. And for storage, we want to choose our mini, which I just renamed so that I wasn't confused as to what mini ISO meant. So all right, let's go ahead and run that. And we're going to install. And obviously, as I go through here, I'm picking the options that make sense for me. I'm in the United States, so I'm going to select English and the correct keyboard. So I'm not going to explain too many of these things as I go through unless there's something that's really important. And also, I will probably speed up some of this video because otherwise it takes a little time, and I don't want to have you sit and watch a screen for no reason. I'm actually going to go ahead and scale this a little bit so it's easier to see. All right. So we'll say so this is a lot like installing Server. In case you've never installed Ubuntu Server, it's the ncurses installer. It's pretty easy to follow. It's not as nice as the Ubiquity installer, obviously, in terms of the UI and maybe walking you through, particularly if you need to do partitioning. So again, this is a VirtualBox system. I'm going to dedicate the entire disk to this, and so I'm not going to get into partitioning in this video. If anyone has any issues doing that or wants to see that, let me know, and I'd be happy to create a video showing how to do that. All right, let's go ahead and create a user. All right, it knows where I am based on my IP address. And here's where, if you needed to, you could manually partition. I'm just going to go ahead and give it the entire thing. And again, if you need any help with this, just let me know, and be happy to create a video explaining that or point you in the right direction. There's plenty of tutorials for that as well. All right, go ahead and write those. And this part takes a little bit of time, so I will just fast forward through this. So this is more of a server question. Obviously, you can have automatic updates on your regular desktop if you'd like. It's not something I'm particularly thrilled with. I'd rather see the updates myself, so I'm just going to go ahead and say no automatic updates. All right, so this is where you would select, being that this is net install, if you wanted one of the standard Ubuntu flavors, you could go ahead and select one of those here. In our case, we just want to add the PPA after the fact, so there's really nothing here we want to install. So I'm going to go ahead and skip selecting any of this. Just say continue. All right, and now it's asking about the bootloader and grub. Install the bootloader to the master boot record. Yes, in this case, we are going to do that. And you normally would too. Even if you're installing this on bare metal on a system, you would likely want to do this. Again, I don't know how you're exactly setting this up, whether you're dual booting or, so I can't make specific recommendations because I don't know that, but obviously in this case, we want to say yes to this. All right, and that's a basic clean install with no desktop environment. So I'm going to say continue, and it's going to reboot. Now, as you notice, the system wants to boot again with the disk. Normally when you install this, it would have asked you to eject the disk. In this case, it didn't, so we're going to go back and actually tell it we don't want the disk there. Now we start it. And we're going to go ahead and log in with whatever username we created. All right. So let's go ahead and, we shouldn't need to install anything because we pulled all these packages from the mirror itself, so I don't think there are any updates to do, but I'm going to go ahead and check anyway. And there are not. Okay. So if you were to just go and add the PPA right now using this command, it doesn't understand add apt repository at this point. So you have to actually add in, install this software properties common first. All right, and while that's doing that, we want to remember that we're adding PPA, Ambrosin, Cinnamon. So do add apt repository PPA Ambrosin Cinnamon. All right. Yes. Okay, we're going to update one more time just in case. Now we're going to say apt install cinnamon. And this is going to take a little while, so I'm just going to let this run. Well, it didn't do that before. Apparently it can't get to the PPA for some reason. So let's try it again. Yep, there we go. For some reason, I don't know what this is. Sometimes I have problems with PPA and connecting to PPA. I'm in the southeastern United States, and the PPAs, I believe, are all hosted in Great Britain. I don't know. Sometimes I have a really hard time getting to them, and sometimes they're really slow. As you see here, they're going at 250 kilobits a second. Okay, we have finished the install. That was extremely exciting. Try to contain yourselves. All right, so let's turn off scaling and go ahead and reboot here. And looky there. All right, I'm going to make sure, I'm going to select Cinnamon here, and we'll go ahead and log in. All right. So at this point, you may need to install video drivers, all those good things. I'm going to go ahead and get the VirtualBox extensions or the additions working on here so that I can show this on a larger view, and I will be right back. Okay, here we are with guest additions. Go ahead and just pop into full screen here. Actually, I really don't like that toolbar. Okay. All right. So what do we have here? We have the stock Cinnamon 4 desktop environment with not so pretty theme and icons. So let's see what we have to work with here. Adwaita, yep. So default sort of GNOME stuff. And a couple other things you notice here. Well, one other thing in particular, this network connection, this applet, even though, well, I don't even have a internet browser yet, so let's go ahead and install Firefox. First of all, let's get rid of this hideous white terminal. That's better. All right. So, like I said, it is extremely minimal. There isn't even a internet browser, and there is almost nothing here. Which, for me, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. I don't want any of that default software installed. So this is my starting point that I'm happy with. And I'm going to go ahead and add in, so now I have Firefox in here, and you see internet shows up. And so we've got that going. Pin that down there. And what I'm going to do, pop back out of full screen here, go back to my note. All right, so we've done all these things. And we're down to fixing the network applet, which, move this over here. So there's a couple commands we need to run here. And I'm actually just going to pull up this article over here so that I can copy and paste. So let's do that. All right, so this is what we were looking for. This fine person here gives us a nice answer to this. So we need to move the existing file and edit. So and paste in this. Run a few commands. Oop. The rest of it. There we go. Apply it. And we need to reboot for that to take effect. Okay, and there we go. Wired connection is recognized, shows it on. All right, so where do we go from here? Well, again, extremely minimal desktop. So if I look back at my list here, basic setup, right? So we want to get some packages. There aren't even wallpapers on here. And, you know, you may see this as a negative thing, right? Literally none. But from here, we could install the Ubuntu default wallpapers, or there's a number, you know, any of the flavors have their set of wallpapers. You could just simply go to, you know, Unsplash wallpapers. You know, how about we grab, this one's lovely. How about this? And there's all sorts of little tweaky things. Like, so for instance, why isn't the thumbnail showing up here? Well, if you go to preferences under Nemo and preview, it's because the file is larger than 1 megabyte, which is kind of silly. So let's set that to, I don't know, 10 megs. And then looky here. You know, now you can see it. So if we say set as wallpaper, I don't know why I can't get that to go away. There you go. There's your wallpaper. So the next thing I would do is install some themes, because this theme is pretty horrible. And so apt install. Now, if you don't know what the themes are, you can either install Synaptic, which let me just go ahead and do that and make it easy for us. All right. Okay. So when you're looking for themes in the repo, just do dash theme, and then you'll see lots and lots of themes. I'm super boring, so I'm just going to go for the arc theme and the papyrus icons. Go ahead and install those. Change my date format. How about something like that? Why not? There we go. The biggest clock in history. All right, we've got our themes now. Let's go back and configure that. Let's just go full dark for the fun of it. Papyrus, arc dark, arc dark. And all of a sudden, look at that. Now, you may not love arc, but it just shows how quickly you can go ahead and get that set up to something else. And from here, I mean, really, this is it, right? We've got Cinnamon installed, and at this point, we can install absolutely anything we want. And this is a strong starting point to do that. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope this was helpful, interesting, whatever adjective you want to throw in there. If you have any comments, if you want to let me know what you think, please let me know, because I enjoy making these. I hope you enjoy watching them and are getting something out of them. And if I'm not doing it the way that makes sense to you, I'd like to know that. All right, I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and take care.